To the so-called dog breeder of 25 years in Indianapolis, Indiana, who runs his kennel by the name of W.A.W.G Kennels, I got some stuff to show you. Have a look.
Now, let me say this too. I was asked this question the other day when I went live about how many times do I feed my dogs. All my dogs are the new five. They're all a year and under. All right, 13 months and under. I'm not trying to put too much weight on my dogs at a young age. Why am I not trying to put too much weight on my dogs at a young age? Because you actually can damage their structures, putting all that weight on their joints that are not, that are not uh, 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 not ready for that type of weight. Let me say it that way. My dogs eat one time a day. You see how thick my dogs are? They eat one time a day. They eat one time a day. They drink all day, drink water all day, and they get a snack here and there throughout the day.
Tyra feeds his dogs once a day. Puppies, most of them under a year old. Feeds them once a day. He likes rules and recommendations that come from kennel clubs. Let's look and see what the AKC has to say about that. How often should dogs eat? Says here, in general, dogs should be fed twice a day. Breed and everything, they're all variables. They also prefer fresh food over kibble. That has changed over the last few years. It used to be they were more into kibble. But hopefully, and it looks like, that they're seeing this dried cereal that people have been feeding their dogs for decades is actually killing them. It's poor food quality, and it's full of dyes and all kinds of other stuff that's just harmful for the body. Nothing should be eating that. I mean, this stuff doesn't grow this way. It's processed food, and we've all come to learn that processed food shortens your lifespan. Anyway, it says here, among the many questions new and experienced dog owners face is an especially important one. How often should you feed your dog? Comes down here and says twice a day. Twice a day is generally a good start. Portions and all that stuff dependent upon the size and breed of the dog, of course. Let's see. Smaller dogs, obviously you want to feed more. But let's read what it says. What affects how often a dog should eat? Again, it says at least twice a day. Let's see. Medical needs may require specialized feeding schedules. Let's see. Breed plays a part in it. All this stuff we've already said. But down towards the bottom, it suggests that smaller dogs should eat more. Reason being, smaller dogs tend to have hypoglycemia. My dog had hypoglycemia, and when he was first born, I had to feed him 8 times a day until his body started to regulate itself. I took 2 weeks off from work, fed him 8 times a day, took the opportunity to potty train him and all that stuff. And as he got bigger and stronger, we started reducing that. 8 times a day went down to 4 times a day. 4 times a day eventually ended up being 2 times a day. And 2 times is where we stopped. What else we got here? How much should puppies eat? It says, since puppies are growing rapidly, they need more food than adults. So basically, feeding them one time a day is stunting their growth. Of course, if you don't have the building blocks to build up muscle and bone, you're not going to grow to your full potential. 1 time a day, not good. Under 12 months, like most of Tyra's puppies are, These dogs are still growing and they're not being fed enough. But this article gets even better. Let's move on to something else here. Puppies need small, frequent feedings for the first few months of a puppy's life. They will need small meals of food throughout the day as they transition from their mother's milk. Yeah, we already talked about that. As they get older, they quickly graduate to twice a day, which is exactly what I did. It says feeding them 3 or 4 times per day makes it easier for puppies to digest and keep their energy levels up. Toy breeds, really small breeds, may need to eat 4 to 6 times. Even though puppies grow quickly, it's important to keep caloric intake and food amount consistent for the 12 months, from 4 to 12 months of age. Okay, moving on. What else we got here? Interesting question right here. Well, it's not really a question. Interesting statement right here. Why it's cruel to feed your dog once a day. What do they have to say about it? Basically, they're saying if you're thinking about feeding your dog once a day, stop thinking it. Don't do it. Reasoning behind that: irregular meal times can cause problems. First off, it's important to understand that a dog's stomach will usually empty in about 4 to 6 hours. The duration will vary slightly with breed and size, but what you end up with is an angry dog. They get irritated and aggressive if their stomachs are empty for too long. Any of us can empathize. We get hungry, we haven't eaten in a long time, we get irritable. Now imagine a situation where you have a bunch of dogs, 6 of them, sitting around in a house, locked in a cage for up to 20 hours a day, only get one meal, and he wonders why they can't be around each other. They can't be around each other because they're all in a bad mood, because they're all hungry, because every time a source of food pops up, they're wondering which one of them is going to be able to get it. One of them has to go in order for the rest of them to eat, is what they're thinking. It's like Lord of the Flies in that house. Let's see what else. It may cause health problems. Your dog might suffer from nutritional deficiencies. You would think a dog breeder who claims to have 25 years of experience would know this stuff. What else we got? It may lead to poor eating habits. Imagine that you were fed one meal throughout the whole day. Yeah, now think of what happens when somebody puts that food in front of you. You're ravenous, you jump on it, you scarf it down. Which is exactly what his dogs are doing. Again, it says adult dogs should eat twice a day. All the articles are very consistent about this one fact. Twice a day. The 25-year dog breeder is entitled to his opinion, but he's not entitled to his own facts. People who have gone to school for years, veterinarians, are recommending twice a day for adult dogs and more frequently for younger dogs. It says puppies need to eat more frequently and should be fed 4 times per day at first and can slowly be weaned down to twice a day. These dogs started their life eating once a day, and they'll be eating once a day until the day they die, it seems. In addition to all of that, I also read that a dog's stomach begins to fill up with stomach acid, as its stomach empties of food, and this acid, if it sits there for too long, irritates their stomach, and they end up throwing it up. It gives them an upset stomach, and they start vomiting bile and stomach acid. You need to put something down there to soak it all up. That's why they're recommending twice a day at minimum.
How many times a day do they eat or drink? I was read that. giving them, looking for stood. Oh, okay. Thanks for the advice, True. Yes, sir. All right. I was told dogs should eat 2 to 3 times a day. Is there a strategy behind feeding them once a day? Feed them good quality dog food. It's not a strategy. It's just feed your dog good quality dog food. And in some cases, you have to test it out with the dogs. And actually, I've gotten back into using sports mix again. They have cleared up, they have fixed the problem with sports mix. And a lot of people are not using sports mix anymore because of that. But almost all dog foods have had recalls. You understand what I'm saying? So since they haven't fixed the problem, although it caused a few deaths in dogs and got quite a lot of dogs sick, they have fixed that. It was just a huge bad batch that came out of certain plants and shit. So I went back to using sports mix as well. So what I end up doing is actually what I feed them. I mix sports mix with diamond. I mean, but it's up to one's own preference, man. They're y'all dogs, man. Y'all do what y'all want to do with them, but understand that we have to operate as like parents to our dogs, just like we would our children, and we have to do what's best for them.
So Tyra says his strategy is to feed his dogs once a day, but make sure he feeds them a high quality dog food. Well, let's look at the foods that he's feeding him. The suggestions that he was making was Gravy Train. Somebody spoke about Gravy Train in one of the questions. I couldn't find it, but it was spoken of in one of his videos. And Gravy Train is one of the worst dog foods out there. It's nothing but corn. And corn does nothing for dogs. It's corn, it's dyes, it's filler, it has almost no nutritional value. It will barely keep you alive, and just barely. I wouldn't call that high quality. It's on the list of one of the top 6 worst dog foods available. After that, you also have Pedigree, another one that's filled with corn and suspicious meat that the origins are unknown. A lot of times it's just skin and hair and leftovers from stuff that's been cut out of animals and shipped for human consumption. The leftovers, whatever's on the floor, that is their meat byproduct. Whoever heard of a meat byproduct? All right, it's either chicken breast, chicken gizzard, whatever, but meat byproduct is a suspicious way of covering up. Well, let's hear exactly what it's covering up.
Do you know what's in his food?
No idea.
The third product is beef byproducts. Do you know what that is?
I wouldn't want to know, I don't think.
If I told you its whole carcasses could include beaks, feathers, might be a little manure, it's just all been cooked in a big vat.
That would make me sick.
Legally, byproducts can include lungs, brain, blood, stomach, and intestines. According to a poll conducted by Wellness Pet Food, 64% of the people surveyed did not know the contents of meat byproducts.
Yeah, I'm sure that sounds real appetizing. Moving on. What else we got? Sports mix. Tyra recommends sports mix and mixes it in with his diamond. Now, truthfully, diamond is not all that bad. It's still a kibble. It's still nutritionally not great, but it's better than a lot of other stuff. But he mixes it with sports mix. Sports mix has been recalled several times for having toxic chemicals and mold in it. And he says he acknowledges that they have had problems in the past. But ask yourself this question. Tyra says that we're like the parents to these dogs. We have to treat dogs like they're our kids and we're responsible for them. Well, if your kid was walking with you through the supermarket and you saw a cereal on the shelf that you knew for a fact 2 years in a row had killed off a whole bunch of kids, and they said they fixed the problem and they put the cereal back on the shelf. And your kid is pulling you. He says he loves that cereal. He wants that cereal. That's his favorite cereal. Are you going to give him that cereal? Or do you think maybe it's time that you learned your lesson? That this stuff is killing your dogs. So you're going to be upset and say Jim supposedly poisoned your dogs and killed off Lola, and you're not going to acknowledge the fact that Sports Mix actually killed hundreds of dogs, and that's what you were feeding Lola. That stuff was mixed in with the rest of her food. And they advise people, anyone that's had Sports Mix, to throw it away, to thoroughly clean out whatever containers that you used to hold the food in. Did you do that? Did you do that with that 50 gallon snap ring drum that you had? Did you flip it upside down, hose it off, rinse that thing out real good to make sure there was no remnants of poison left over in there from that Sports Mix that you had all mixed up in the food before contaminating the rest of it and feeding it to Lola and the other dogs? Who's really responsible for Lola's death? I said it before and I'll say it again. Tyra and W.A.W.G Kennels is the worst kennel to ever be created, if it's an actual kennel at all. It's more like a puppy mill. But it is the worst at raising dogs, breeding dogs, housing dogs. Pays them no attention. They can't even sit properly. They're not taught to sit. They don't know how to walk. And he's worried about them getting fat off of food because they're locked in a cage 20 hours a day with no exercise. They're just meant to sit there and breed. W.A.W.G Kennels. Should be called W.A.W.G Dog Killers.